Hey, what's up, guys? Spire 2 recently came out to early access, and it's been a ton of fun. They added a new multiplayer mode, and a lot of people are checking the game out for the first time. And this might be their first roguelike deck builder or first time checking out Spire in general. And I think more and more people, as we keep playing, are noticing that, especially in the higher ascensions, the game kind of starts getting hard. People say, oh yeah, but like every run is winnable. I'm on a 200 win streak, but that's not most people's reality. The game is hard and has a lot of decisions you need to make, and it can be a struggle being on top of everything. So I just want to take the opportunity to make a video going over 5 tips that I can think of for you to immediately implement in your gameplay to improve your consistency in multiplayer. All right, tip number one is for you to draft your decks collectively in a way where you keep up key debuffs for most of the fight, at least. And by key debuffs, I'm talking about weak, vulnerable, strength down to a lesser extent. It's kind of harder to get that effect up consistently. A persistent strength down is a very premium effect with a lot of drawback, and temporary strength, like, it doesn't persist between turns, so it's kind of hard to work that out, but a very strong effect nonetheless. And my point here is kind of that even if you yourself don't really use these keywords, weak and vulnerable, let's say you're doing a poison deck and you don't really need weak to block. So that means that you don't need it. No, like, you have teammates, right? And your teammates are probably attacking, and your teammates probably need weak to stabilize their turn so they can scale and all that stuff. And you would probably be wise to pick up a really strong debuff card to help out your team, even if it doesn't help you necessarily. On the screen, I'm going to be showing some of the cards that I consider picking up when I'm in a run. Again, I really want to hammer in the point that, yeah, maybe you don't need a tremble for your own deck, you don't really care. But you have a bunch of teammates now, so that one cost, one draw that might make that card kind of hard to play is now very easy to play because you're increasing vulnerable uptime for everybody. And well, it's up to you if your team can keep up that vulnerable, but if you can't, consider picking a cheap common card like this up just to help everyone out. Necrobinder has so many amazing tools for this stuff: debilitate, defy, fear, enfeebling touch, all this stuff. You put this all in your deck and you stack all the effects together, you will take like these big 30 to 40 damage hits and turn them into like 10 or 12 or whatever have you. All right, my next tip is you should be fine with dying. That might sound weird, but I'm specifically talking in multiplayer. When you die, you do come back at the end of a fight with 1 HP. Um, this can have a really nasty consequence in hallway fights, because what happens is you might die in a combat, you get resurrected to 1 HP, then you get to the next combat and you're 1 health, so any amount of chip damage can kill you, which is really annoying. You should try not to die there. Of course, you should try not to die in general, but if you're at the like act boss fight and you're considering, okay, should I keep myself alive or should I make a really high impact turn to help my teammates kill? You should probably make that big turn to help your teammates kill. Even if you die, you'll just get picked back up and you're gonna heal in for the next act. Maybe you're gonna miss out on a break point or two, but if for the sake of your teammates, you're probably making the better play by just sacrificing yourself. All right, for my next tip, I do want to look at some of the multiplayer cards here. My point is that even though some of these cards might be a little wordy or the effects feel like a little hard to get value out of, that's not necessarily true. And a lot of them are just straight up good attacks. And let's take Gang Up, for example. It's kind of wordy. It basically says you deal additional damage every time another player has attacked the enemy this turn. Um, the thing is, the number is really big on it. So even if your teammates are not working together with you on this, you can still pretty easily get like 30 damage attacks for 1 energy. That's always going to be good, especially early on. And there's like a bunch of attacks that synergize with different stuff. Gang Up is definitely one of the better ones. so is believe in you. The reason this card kind of exists is you're basically saying, okay, I probably can't do anything in my deck that's as impactful as feeding my teammate 3 energy and letting them go crazy, right? Um, some of these are kind of mediocre. Intercept's not great. Tank on the Ironclad. I'll pull it up. Uh, this isn't too hot. But, every time you see one of the multiplayer cards, make sure you read it and you really consider it because a lot of them are pretty solid. All right, my next tip, this just happens a lot to me personally, and I think it's pretty important when you're in your deck drafting process, is try not to build decks that stall fights out for too long because, again, you have teammates, and if you're relying on them to win fights, you probably don't want to stay for like 15 plus turns in a fight when the enemy starts scaling a lot of damage and being really nasty. Your teammates are just going to take a lot of chip damage and probably die along the way. Meanwhile, you might be fine personally, but then you rock up on the boss and you have no teammates to speak of. That's going to be super annoying. All right, for my final tip, I wanted to leave it to last because it is not really a multiplayer exclusive tip like some of these others are, but it's so important. It is the number one most important tip in this game, and it's to learn the movesets of the enemies, right? Like, you can have a good deck and you can, win any run, but if you are a more well-rounded, competent player, you learn what all of the enemies do, and you shape your run around that. Right? Like, you think about, okay, what kind of elites can I face in the undergrowth? Okay, let me play around that. What is my act boss? Okay, let me play around. I see a Phantom at the top in Act 1. I already know, okay, maybe I would skip a multiplayer, a multi-hit card like, I don't know, Sword Boomerang, right? I'd skip that card normally, I don't like it. But, if I see that boss, I might want to pull that up if I'm scared that I'm going to lose that fight. And, if you're not scared that you're going to lose that fight, then you probably skip on that card anyways and you win by other means. And now you don't have like a mediocre strike plus in your deck when you otherwise would have. Just knowing your limits, knowing what to work around is a really big deal in this game. And you need to be informed to make those kinds of decisions. So it's really important that you learn the move sets, learn what the enemies do, what they ask of you, what kind of debuffs they put on you, and what kind of cards that you can use to counter them. You fight the Entomancer, the Beekeeper guy in Act 2. Okay, maybe I do pick up this Feel No Pain when I don't have a lot of exhaust energy. It's going to help me a lot for that fight, or, what have you. There's definitely a lot of stuff that I missed here, but these are some of the things that go a little unappreciated in my opinion, and I just wanted to talk about it. So, thanks for watching.